Hey guys, welcome back to my craft room. Wait, we're not in my craft room. Yeah, I got a new channel. I figured most people probably won't want to see or listen to this part, or they'll want to listen to this part and not watch the crafting. And also, I have a bunch of vlogs I want to be doing, so I figured let's make a separate channel. We'll still technically be in the craft room since the craft room is my corner, my table. So it's a little messy, but you know, that's what happens when you craft. So the new channel is something that it scares me. I've got one video I want to post, but I just don't have the nerve to even film it yet. I've got kind of like what I want to say down, but it's still a little bit of a gut wrencher. So I figured let's start off easy. First video, let's talk about my relationship with food, because that's essentially where everything started, right? I would say food is well, it's half. It's half of everything. Uh, it's kind of, well, it is a big deal in my life. I mean, it's a big deal in everybody's lives. It's food. So and it's a very hard topic to talk about because we get so many different, what's the right word? Descriptions of food and what we should be doing with food and how we should be doing things with food. That didn't quite come out right. This one I did not really think about much. I figured this one's gonna be kind of more of a slow roll into all of my things that have happened with food and where I've gotten to this point with it. So kind of a backstory, I guess, as well, which is probably a very good thing to have as my first video on this channel. If you have watched my crafting videos, you might have gotten a little peek into little pieces into my life and things around food and mental health and, well, physical health as well. But most of the time I kept it pretty secret because I thought no one wants to hear this, so why would I even bother talking about it? Which is something that, I've had to work through as well. And all of this is really a very big, I've had to kind of get out of my comfort zone. I've had to realize when I'm right, when I'm wrong, when, certain things that I've been taught are wrong. That's a big one because I was a big believer in just believing people and thinking that they knew what was best for me, and clearly that was not right. So I had to kind of take over and understand that I know what's best for me as well as you know what's best for you, and also that I can't control anybody else. So I might as well take control of myself and do a pretty good job at it instead of trying to bits and piece myself out into everybody's, problems and what they need done. So kind of just to get into it, I'm going to just hop back into my childhood. It's a very interesting thing to be talking about, you know, on camera on this channel. I I want to kind of have a mixture of, you know, this did happen, but now I'm doing this. So it's a little sad, but also look what I'm doing now, and to myself, like even just in my own brain, you know, I don't have to live like that anymore. A quote that I really love is, um, well, kind of to paraphrase it, I guess, and turn it into my own thing, is I was living to survive, and now I want to thrive. I want to have fun. I want to live life. So, I know I keep like, I think I am drawing out having to talk about things. Yeah, I'm gonna be right back, and then we're gonna get into it. Okay, I think I'm ready. Sat in the air a little bit to try and cool down, because I don't want my face to get any redder than it already is. Something that happens frequently is just my face gets so red, and that it's attributed to a lot. But okay, enough beating around the bush. I think that I have never gone to a counselor, so I have never, well, I haven't even really talked these things out before, and I think that it's a little easier when you're talking to a counselor because you don't know who they are, you know it's not going to leave the room, so it's essentially a safe zone. And right now, most of my life I haven't really talked to anybody really about anything. That's why with the crafting channel, it was just kind of, well, you know, I would just talk about crafting. Sometimes little bits and pieces would slip in there, but lately now I'm kind of talking about things a little bit more. But the way it all stemmed from is it was during the recession, I think, is really when everything kind of hit home. Food was looked as a scarcity, and the kinds of foods that we had were not nutritionally dense. I mean, we would have carrots, we'd have sometimes peas, we'd have, you know, occasional green beans, apples, pretty much. Sometimes grapes and sometimes watermelon. But those were like special treats, you know? So I looked at food as essentially a scarcity, and when I was able to be in places that had food as like an abundance, I would pretty much go crazy. I would eat as much as I could to kind of get my fill before I got to, or I guess I had to go back to that kind of, I would say, starvation, essentially. And my body kind of kept that with myself through a long time, just kind of this starvation mode. And I know that's probably going to trigger a whole bunch of people. A whole bunch of these videos are going to trigger people, but because I know a lot of people don't believe in starvation mode and whatnot. But I think that was what it was. I think, well, of course it's emotional as well, but I think, you know, starvation mode really did occur here. And it wasn't essentially I was going to starve because my body had enough calories to run. It was my body wasn't getting enough vitamins and different kinds of nutrients. It basically ran off of carbs. And with a family background of diabetes, I'm assuming it's genetic. It's probably not good that I was running off of carbs. But something that kind of hit home is when I started to kind of realize that I was going into binge eating. I don't know, well, it wasn't because I was getting into it. It was I was realizing that these tendencies occurred throughout my life. And I'm kind of debating, do I talk about those or do I put that into a different video when I'm more composed or more, okay with talking about it? I feel like I kind of have to, though, because that's a really big part of my relationship with food. I'm probably gonna have to pause so many times because this stuff is still pretty fresh in my mind, especially because I haven't talked to anybody about it really. And when I did, it was kind of more in like a joking manner, or me just like kind of testing the waters. So for me to, this is kind of my uh, working through it, essentially. And hopefully, um, hopefully it helps somebody else see that, you can work through your emotions through it. Most of my life I've held these kind of blocked, essentially. And just lately they've really kind of started coming out of the woodwork. So, I mean, I think it's attributed to a few different factors, but it definitely helps that I have God. He's a lot closer and stronger in my life right now. So I think that's why it's all kind of flooding out now, because I have that security, because I couldn't go through that before. So now I kind of can, and it's gonna take a lot, emotionally and physically, to get through kind of going through all of the emotions, because there are emotions attached to these relationships, essentially. I have to feel those emotions that I've had built up within me about these, what's the word I'm looking for? The stereotypes of food, or, also the events that have occurred with food. I have to go through the emotions to be able to kind of separate myself from it. I know that's crazy, because typically we turn to food to separate ourselves from the emotion that was occurring then, so why would I want to reopen that up? Well, I also don't want to be a slave to food anymore. It's kind of, well, it definitely does play a major part in my life, where food has had the power over me. And I'm sick of that. I want to have the control back. Finally found it. One quote that I'm always going to bring up is something that constantly sticks in my brain, and it kind of has really helped me. There's a lot of them, but this one I'm probably going to be talking about the most every time I, bring up self-control or anything. And that's Proverbs 25:28. And it's like a city whose walls are broken, through is a person who lacks self-control. And I think that it's so easy to kind of think of self-control as, well, being able to put things away and do what's best for other people and whatnot. But in reality, self-control is making sure that you get what you need so that you can do other things for other people. And with my relationship with food, sorry, hair, through my relationship with food, it's very easy to see that I did not have self-control, because I was allowing food to have that control over my emotions. I think it started out as just, my body really wants to eat that. or my mind really wants to eat that. And I said, okay, why not? Just have that, right now. But then slowly over time, it's kind of created this monster of, I have to do what it says. And that has just fully taken its own control, and I don't have that anymore. And I think that's when, like, the actual binging started. I did not have the control over my own emotions. I let something else take over. And I think that because I was getting closer to God, it was a lot easier for me to see that I was not in control. Because most of the time, the Bible says that you need to be in your own mind. You need to be able to essentially control yourself in different situations. And I was looking at it as I controlled my emotion during that situation. But in reality, I wasn't, because I allowed that emotion to then be controlled later on in the day with a binge. It's probably so hard to follow because I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of it. What really, cemented my thought that I was binging is I would go to family members' houses. Something would happen, and I could not react because of certain unspoken rules. We'll talk about that later, that have been imposed upon myself, sometimes even just by myself. And because I did not want to break any of those rules, I always kept it in. I never said anything, I never did anything, and then afterwards, when I got home, I would binge. Sometimes it wasn't a binge. Sometimes it was just overeating because, we didn't really eat that day. I don't know. I'm still kind of... I feel like there are two different kinds of binging for me. There's the one where I feel like I am being starved. And there are the ones where I am allowing the food to take away whatever happened that day. Or I don't quite know yet. There's still some, logistics there that I don't quite know. And I also have the one that I want to talk about later is talking about how I'm training myself to get out of binging. So, that I'll get more into detail on that. But, so I had to kind of look back and see where I actually started this habit of allowing myself to either get the nutrients I needed or to kind of, what's the word, not dissect. I've written it down before. Oh my gosh, what's the word? Separate myself? I can't think of the word, but essentially separate myself from the problem or whatever emotion was trying to happen. So I had to go back to all of the times where I've kind of felt that in that situation. I've been in that situation. Of course, I probably don't know all of them because things kind of are coming back to me gradually. I kind of put up a wall. I just to save myself, apparently. But one of the earliest memories I have is waking up in the middle of the night. Actually, I don't even really remember waking up. I just remember having a can of green beans and sitting on the stairs and crying because I couldn't open them. Alright. Another situation is I was going to a dietitian. I don't know what age. It was very young. And the day before I went to see her, well, I had to do a food log a week before I went and saw her. And the day before I saw her, I ate a whole bag of mints. The little candy mints. I think back on it now and I'm like, who does that? And see, some of these that chronologically I can't remember what came first, what, you know. I had a friend who I think was going through the same thing, except she wasn't actually getting the food she needed. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But we would go and steal food. Something I'm so ashamed of. Trying to think of the other time. I think the next one was I would steal sips of pop. And I think that's, before then, I was supposed to do a fast, and I ate a whole basket of candies and popcorn, and then a large meal at a friend's house instead of fasting. So in my whole life, pretty much, I've been trying to diet. I don't really remember much of it until middle school. That's when I started doing a Biggest Loser competition at school. And that's when I started to drink a lot of Diet Pop. I ate frozen yogurt. I ate salads every day. Sometimes I wouldn't eat lunch. That's a little fuzzy. Because I feel like sometimes you say something enough in your brain and you start to believe it. So I don't know, was it that I just had more other things to do, which comes into play again here soon? Or was it because I just didn't want to eat, too, for the sake of it, you know? Didn't have to worry about having that extra meal. So in high school, I was just so busy that I took on the whole I'm too busy to eat. When I did, I would just shove food in because I knew I had to eat. And my body felt like, you know, to be able to survive, I had to eat so much right then, because then I'm not going to be able to get it later on because I was too busy. And I think that still carried with me after high school, but I wasn't busy anymore. I made myself busy, essentially, with menial tasks and stuff, but it wasn't the same kind of busy. I wasn't as physical as I was in high school. So doing the same thing, it started to show. Um, I started to gain rapidly. And I was eating a whole bunch of different things, more fast food, more baked goods. I had more access to crappier foods, essentially, and still never really had nutritious. And I was cooking. I cooked all through high school as well, pretty much. And I didn't know how to cook vegetables, really. I also knew we couldn't afford it, also with fruits. So carbs. I learned how to cook carbs, and I learned how to cook them good. Uh, Still is something I deal with today. It's very easy for me to just turn to a carb dish when I don't feel like doing much because it's already in my head. And I also know if we're going to a party, I'll bring a carb dish because I know it's going to be loved. I think it took a lot for me to realize I had to go through mental changes to be able to get my relationship with food better. And the first step that I took, and this was in 2015, a year after I started my crafting channel, I realized what was happening. I don't think I knew, I definitely did not know to the extent of today what I know. I just knew something was wrong, and I wanted to change it. So I started doing the same things that I did in middle school. I started doing the frozen yogurt. I started doing, I didn't really get into diet soda again because of the aspartame. I was too afraid of it. And, like, if I did, it would be just once in a while. But I kind of had the same mentality. I started skipping meals. I ate the lowest calorie stuff that I could find. Kind of became, I wasn't even counting. I never really counted much in my life. Which actually makes sense now that I'm thinking about it now. I just went with the healthiest things I knew that would be the lowest calorie without counting. So soups. I would get the most basic soups, like vegetable soups made, and just like broth. Sometimes I wouldn't even do broth. Like in the crock pot, I would just do water and then vegetables. Thinking about it now, I kind of have my summary of, what I think of everything at the end. I don't want to address everything now because I've kind of got a blanket statement of, yeah. But I went to that. And then I had kind of a relapse. Yeah, I would say relapse. And I started to just kind of not care anymore. I just went with whatever anybody wanted. Because it was easier. And I started taking everybody's advice. I would kind of just I guess the word is yo-yo diet, probably. And then last year, I was sick of listening to everyone on everything, not just food. So my mind really started to click and change, and there's multiple reasons. I'll probably talk about it in another video. Probably, it's gonna be so many videos, oh my gosh. But it took a lot to get to this point, and it's still going to take a lot to be able to completely change. But something that really kind of hit home is I learned about keto. I learned about intermittent fasting. And I mean, I was essentially doing low carb most of the time. I was actually doing eat as little calories as possible. I mean, you know, I didn't know exactly how many calories, but eat as little calories as possible. And then on my weekends, I would just fast food, candy, as much as I wanted. And I watched cheat meal videos. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing a cheat meal. So then I justified it to myself that if I eat as little as possible during the week, I can eat whatever I want on either this day or this weekend. And I think it was interesting because my body responded to it. Sorry, I've got sniffles. I don't know if it responded well. I can't remember. But it must not have, because then I tried intermittent fasting. I was like, okay, when Daniel leaves for work, it's my husband, I am not going to eat until dinner time. So I'm not going to eat until 8 o'clock. Well, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. It kind of varied. We have a very strange schedule. But, so I would eat a big dinner with him, and then I just wouldn't eat anything. And it got to the point where I went to bed, and my husband was on his phone. I fell asleep, and I was dreaming about food. And I started to grind my teeth in my sleep. Which my teeth are, oof, I've had so much work done on them. And now that I'm trying to take care of them more, I was like, nope, no, I'm not doing this anymore. If it's going to hurt my teeth. Because I do not, I believe now that the teeth are kind of the health center of your body. I mean, other parts are probably as well, but teeth are very important. So I stopped the intermittent fasting, and I was just kind of, I guess, floating, looking for different ways. And luckily, I've read different books, I've watched different people on YouTube, and I kind of fell into this whole calorie counting. But it wasn't the normal calorie counting that I was used to. I was used to the 1,200 calories is what you need to achieve to lose weight. But I kind of got into this different mentality of I'm not really wanting to lose weight. I want to get my body healthy. And to do that, my body needs this certain amount of calories, energy, to survive. and I went through the formula. I found out how many calories I needed to survive, and I started doing it. I started counting everything that I ate, and the first week I did it to see how many calories am I eating. And it was the typical, I would eat barely anything, but, well, I would eat a lot, but not enough. But then I would overeat on the weekends. So it was kind of shocking, I guess, for my body to go into this kind of surplus of calories, essentially, and not just me being tired all the time, because there for a while I would just sleep. I was taking like 13-hour naps. I was so drained because I wasn't connecting the fact that food is what's going to get me through the day. And just eating a crap ton of food on the weekend is not going to get me feeling any better. I also have hip problems and back problems. I think that I'm a big believer in the fact that if something is wrong mentally, you will feel it physically. And I think that kind of attributes as well here. I think that, there are also physical things that happen. But I think because I was in such a bad mental state, it was kind of like tenfold of hurting. And I could kind of see that now, looking back. It's kind of interesting looking back and seeing what all occurred. But now, well, before I even get to now, I was kind of eating whatever I wanted, as long as I fit in that calorie. And sometimes I had to push myself to eat that calorie limit, because I had like the whole, I'm gonna call it guilt. Like, I shouldn't be eating this much. Like, or the whole looking back at the 1,200 calories. I'm not gonna lose weight because I would get back in that mindset of I'm doing this to lose weight, but I'm not. Ever since January, my mindset has been, I'm doing this for a lifestyle. I am not doing it as a diet. I am trying to get my body essentially to the healthiest that it can be, and I'm doing different things to get it there. And weight is a very good thing to be keeping an eye on, because I know that dropping weight is going to affect my blood pressure. I know that dropping weight is going to affect my joints. I don't really have very many joint issues, but, aches and pains there. I know that it's going to affect my back. It's been affected by the weight and also by mental as well. Mood will be affected by weight. I also think that it's not the biggest part of it, though. So, any time that I would talk to somebody else about weight, or like what diet they're on, or whatever they're doing, I would essentially relapse, because I would second guess myself. I'd be like, well, maybe I should be doing what they're doing. And I had to stop myself. I had to regroup, because I stopped losing. And I started to feel bad again. I started to binge again. So I had to regroup and I had to look at myself mentally again. And this is such an ongoing process of this mental battle because it takes a lot out of you. But everything stems from mental. Why am I binging? Because people are telling me this. Because I don't have enough confidence in myself to know what's best for me. And then also, they can do whatever they want. They know what's best for them. They know that, whatever they're doing is working for them. I need to have enough confidence to know that what I'm doing is working. It is. I feel so much better. I am, well, eating healthier, essentially. And I also had to kind of step away from people. We'll talk about that, but more in the binging, how I'm training myself to stop binging. But the fact that I turned to food, and I knew the second that I started to do it, I felt myself. And I was like, wait, no. I'm not eating this food to just eat it. I am turning to it, essentially, was what I was doing. So that was when it just snapped. And now I am taking different steps to better my relationship with food. It is less about quantity, I guess. It's more about quality, because I would eat a huge plate. Well, actually, it's just a frozen bag of broccoli. And I would just have that on my plate. And I would just eat it and like crazy. But I knew that I could have 3 or 4 of those bags because they're only 100 calories a bag. So it got kind of an interesting. I think it was necessary to go through that phase. I think every phase I've gone through has been necessary. But now I can kind of understand where I can balance things out. And I'm not afraid of food. I'm not allowing food to have power over me. If I want a milkshake, I'm going to have a milkshake. Of course, I'm going to relapse like crazy because it's still the mental game of my self-control. Knowing what's best for me. Not looking to other people. And not even really caring about what they do. It's about me. So the mental games are crazy. And my relationship with food has been, well, I guess it's kind of been one note, and then it's just been like but for me to be able to see now and look back on all those times where I've felt helpless, I felt starved, I felt different kinds of emotions in general. And now I'm starting to unravel binging, overeating, just lack of self-control. For me to be able to wrap that up and kind of be able to see and pinpoint, my emotions and what I'm feeling that day is huge. It's crazy to think, back. And I was essentially a zombie, is what I was. I was just in the search for food. Either because I was very hungry or because I needed something to be my coping mechanism. So now I am trying to get my relationship away from food. I am thinking of other things. I don't want to say it that way, but I don't want food to be my coping mechanism anymore, is essentially it. And I went through different processes of having to go through the motions of what happened. And the first time I went through it, I put blame on other people. It just happens. I looked at other people like they started this. They made me do this. They made me this way. And now I see we're all to blame. Which is, it's crazy. It's very hard to say that. Because just instinct, you don't want to put yourself in the blame, right? But I am to blame for my relationship with food. I took the passenger seat when it came to food. Well, when it came to a lot of things, but because we're talking about with food, you know. I allowed things to happen to me. I never fought. There probably were many times where I had options of doing different things. I also can't just blame myself. Something I had to go through as well. It's very easy to put the blame on myself because of the unspoken rules. And it's hard for me to pinpoint that person could have done better for me. In the shoes that we were in, they could have done better. But they also were trying to do things for themselves. So I can't entirely put the blame on them. And that's when it comes to, it's almost blameless. It just happened. And right now, I am fixing it. For myself. I'm not just reacting anymore. I am fixing, essentially. I'm fixing and thriving because I am going past what happened and I'm not looking back, you know, as much as I can. Because it happened. I have no say in what happened anymore. Because it's gone. It's the past. So now I'm looking towards my future and what can I do better to better my relationship with food? Okay, I have my own self-control. I do not let those walls be broken. Because as soon as those walls are down, I start to crumble. I start to, you know, get back into that mood, that whole past. And I do not want to go back there. So, I just have to keep my eyes forward. I have to think to myself constantly, you know, do I really want to eat that? Do I really need to eat that? That's a good one. And also, what can I do for the best of my body? Because I hate coffee. But now that I'm running, I need some sort of energy, extra energy. And there are so many health benefits of espresso. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to force myself to have this espresso before I go running. Because it's going to help me in multiple ways. Not just to give me a boost, to make sure that, you know, I am able to start running or to even, feel good enough to continue to run. Excuse me. But to get past that, I know kale is gonna be a big one soon. I'm now eating spring mix salad instead of just iceberg lettuce. It's these little transitions that I have control over that I'm taking back. It's I can order one thing off of the menu and be fine. Or sometimes I just feel like having one meal. And that's okay. But am I only having this one meal because of an emotional thing? Or am I doing it because I really do just want to only eat one meal? With the summer, it's been kind of really muggy lately, and sometimes I just feel like, okay, I just want it done and over with. I'm eating, my calories, and that's it. Like, ugh. Because I hate sometimes having that heaviness. So it's very intuition based, but also with the knowledge of my body needs this many calories, and that's it. That's all. You don't need any more. So finding out do I want more of these grapes, or do I want more of these pretzels? Well, pretzels don't sound that good right now. Grapes sound awesome because it is so hot. So I go with the grapes. And I eat more of it because that's what I want. I also account for calories. So it's kind of a juggle game, essentially. Any day is different because I am allowing my brain to take control, not my emotions. Sometimes emotions do come into play because, well, I don't know. It's very hard to say that. Because, of course, when I have my period, I want chocolate. But I also know that chocolate is probably necessary because of is it magnesium and iron, I believe? So instead of having milk chocolate, or Reese cups, or whatever, which would be my emotional side, I have dark chocolate. 85% or higher. Sometimes 78% because it's on sale. Which is something I'll probably talk about later on as well. But kind of what do I actually eat and how I formulate things. But because I know that darker chocolate is so much better for me. So I do allow that emotional, I do want some chocolate, but I'm going to do the most healthiest version of that possible. And I know that it has probably a little bit more calories. Well, kind of. Like if my body needs fats, I'm okay with eating fats because I can put it in my budget of calories and be fine. Okay, I think I'm just rambling now. But overall, my relationship with food has been the roller coaster. Flatten the roller coaster. So I'm now starting to flatten back out again, but not in a bad way, in a good way. I think that, going through all of those mental loops of figuring out what happened and realizing that it already happened. I can go through the emotions now. I can feel those. but it doesn't have to affect me in my future life. And of course I'm going to have relapses, because that's what's going to happen. But I can guard myself as much as I can. I need to build up my self-control, those walls, as best as I can, so that when I do come across things like that could, trigger me or whatever, my self-control is going to be the best that I can provide, or, best that I can kind of do. It's kind of like my heart, I can do certain things to make sure that it is stronger and it is healthier. So to be able to do that with my self-control, I feel like is my main goal now. So that's mentally and physically, kind of. So being able to realize what a balanced meal is. Realizing that, 720 calories is an okay meal for me. I can eat that many calories and be fine. Not the whole, eat 300 calories for a meal. So just recognizing that my self-control and my will is okay. I don't need to listen to anybody else. And that is my kind of overarching theme, I guess, is just allowing myself to know that I know what's best. And of course, see, I hate this part because I know some people are going to take this and they're going to run with it. And you should see a medical professional. I'll probably have a disclaimer in the beginning of all my videos that just says, you should see a medical professional, because I don't know if what I did was right. It ended up being right for me. It might not be for you. So, go see a medical professional. Sometimes you have to see more than one, because sometimes they aren't what you need. And it's a lot of trial and error to be able to get to where you want to be. But that is really the bulk of it for today. I know I rambled so much and whatnot, but hopefully this gave you kind of an insight into what this channel is going to be mostly. I'm also going to be doing other things, but most of it's going to be talking about this kind of stuff. A little bit about, kind of just getting it off my chest, because I journal it. So being able to kind of speak it out loud is, I feel like, a little bit more fortifying. So I can be like, yeah, I went through that. It's done. It's over. I journaled it. I talked about it. I'm done. I hope. I really hope. But that is it for me today. I guess I'll go with my normal saying. Why not, right? I like it anyway, so I hope you're having a crazy day. Good crazy, not bad crazy. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.